choice of background.
You like that? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source Podcast. I'm your host, Jace. We have a special creator interview for you. I've been wanting to do this one for a long time. I have Karla Pacheco, the writer of Spider-Woman, joining me. Karla, thanks for joining me.
Yay, me.
Yeah, and I think covered literally every single issue of Spider-Woman as it's come out because
you guys have, and you've been so kind to us. I definitely, Pere and I both definitely appreciate how supportive you guys have been for the book, like from the beginning. Like it's been very, 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 very kind of you all.
You know, we pride ourselves on always giving honest opinions. And I got to say, like, the coverage and the praise that we've given the book is so well deserved because, and I've talked about this just about probably every time we've covered it, is what a fresh perspective and for me, the most authentic voice that Jessica has ever had. Like she's always been somebody for me, you know, back in the early days, she felt like a little more of a staid, reserved personality, which was so strange for a comic book superhero. And then Bendis took her in a different direction, and that was okay, but she felt a little more, you know, just kind of your generic superhero. But you've really given her this relatable, she's got heart, but she's so many times just the mess.
Right? Oh, yeah. No, it's, well, I mean, obviously, like, my first introduction to Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman was also with the Bendis run, like, on Avengers and then Spider-Woman Origins. And I think the thing that I always loved about her and I found relatable was definitely, it's like, she's got some history she never really dealt with. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the thing that when I was asked to kind of like, you know, start this all up is I wanted to explore that. Basically, I wanted to explore the trauma and being a smartass, but also blow up a lot of helicopters and punch dinosaurs.
Yeah, and well, that's the other thing that we always say is it's such a great balance between that kind of relatable, emotional heart of the series. There's always tons of action. You never, you know, if somebody's not necessarily into I don't really care if I can relate to her or not. I just want to see cool shit blow up.
Oh, yeah.
Pick up Spider-Woman.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Pere Perez is, and with Frankie Darmada, just bringing it to life with the colors. Like Pere Perez, he's a trained martial arts instructor in his own right. And he and I ended up with a very early action comic-y mind meld. And it has been so much fun to just go ham on this stuff. Like I joke that the emotions and the heart rippies are kind of like the stuff I do around all of the action. Mm-hmm. Because I like blowing stuff up. Pere likes awesome punchies and kickies. And so we both just go nuts with it, and we have way too much fun, and they let us get away with so much that I never thought they would have let us get away with.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. So you mentioned pitching on the book, and I know, so Marvel reached out to you. They said, hey, we're thinking about bringing Spider-Woman back. Now, were you already familiar with her? Had you already read the Bendis stuff?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when they approached me, I was like, ooh, wow, like, yes, like that'd be cool. But, you know, when you're bringing back a character that, you know, hadn't been, obviously, like the Hopeless run was great, but that took it in a complete, you know, that took Jess in a very new dimension mm-hmm. of motherhood and relationships and stuff like that. Well, you know, also kicking ass. Kelly Sue DeConnick used her a lot with, you know, bringing that really amazing Captain Marvel, the relationship between Jess and Captain Marvel, I think brought her to the forefront as well. And so for me, like when they approached me, they were like, yeah, we want to just kind of go big and over the top. And I was like, well, came to the right place. Right. It's Pacheco's House of Helicopter Explosions. And you know, there's so many different ways that they could have chosen to take the book. with bringing it back. And apparently, like, my idiocy that I came up with was something they thought sounded interesting. I didn't think we were supposed to go past 5 issues, and so now here we are at 18 just coming out, and so I guess it turned out okay.
Yeah, definitely. And you had a little hiccup right after issue 1. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh yeah.
But
wow.
But one other thing I wanted to ask before we get to that. Did you ever go back and read that first run? Because I'm sure you know the original story, and for those listeners that don't, so the whole reason Marvel started Spider-Woman is because they were afraid that another company was going to say, "Oh, we'll put out Spider-Woman to capitalize on
take that name,
take the name, take the trademark, take the copyright, and capitalize on the popularity of Spider-Man." And so, but they never, Stan and the guys, they didn't really have like some great idea for a character. They're just like, let's just put out this generic. But I will say that, especially when Marv Wolfman came on the original series, they came up with some pretty good ideas and leaned into more of like the supernatural kind of feel. But again, I feel like that, if you go back and read that original run, that's kind of the reason she felt a little old and fuddy-duddy, because just
I feel I do like I'm even wearing like my classic my classic shirt. I feel like obviously there's so much love for the character. Like there was always something that she had that was kind of special, and that is unique, honestly, in a lot of, especially the female superheroes, but for all superheroes, she had kind of a unique vibe. I don't think it was explored as much as it could have been. I've mentioned before, and probably to my detriment for anyone trying to steal my identity, I was born the exact same day that the very first appearance of Spider-Woman appeared in comics.
Wow, that's cool.
So in Marvel Spotlight number 34,
32.
February 10th, 1977, that was the day I was born. And so yes, it was all destiny, all leading to this, or some other bullshit. But what was funny is our 5th issue was the legacy, only the 100th issue of Spider-Woman. And for a 44-year-old character, at the time when we put out that 5th issue, that's not a lot.
No, not at all.
Like only 100 legacy solo issues, really. And people will always ask, like, what was Marvel's math? And I was like, I don't know. Someone else does that. They just let me know because I was asking about some other thing, and they're like, oh, it turns out 5 is going to be 100. I was like, oh, I should probably make that important, I guess. I was just doing my thing.
Well, another part of what I love about this, and it's true of both your Spider-Woman title and also the Captain Marvel. You mentioned Jessica's friendship with Carol. They're both being written by really talented female creators right now. Kelly Thompson's doing Captain Marvel. Yeah. And the reason I bring it up, and it goes back to something you just said about how there was always something special about Jessica and about Spider-Woman. Even if the story or the character wasn't that fleshed out when it first started, her original costume, which I think is probably in my top 3, if not my favorite Marvel costume. I mean, such a classic design.
The Severin design.
Yeah, that's it. The fact that it was designed by Marie Severin, who never gets enough credit for her contribution because of the time that she worked. So I was not that, and you can see it here in this corner, everybody, the cover of number 1. I mean, that was a cool design too, but I was really happy in 11, which was sort of a new jumping on point, that you guys got back to that classic costume. So that was fantastic.
It was very funny because when they announced the new series, they announced that cover of number 1. They had 2 versions. They had the classic costume, is how they announced the series, with her jumping out of the exploding helicopter. Quite the omen of things to come for the Pacheco Perez run. And so half the people responding to, oh, there's a new Spider-Woman series coming. It's half the people who liked the most recent, like the more motorcycle jacket suit, were upset that because they had liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Other half were glad that it was going back to the classic suit. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, in another 2 months, you're going to find out about the black suit, and everyone's going to be pissed all at once. And they were. It was awesome, Jace.
But you know what? You guys, you had a good reason for it. You had a good story reason. And I always knew that the classic one would come back. It's because it's just too classic. Not to.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like, I'll say right here, the decision to go with the new suit was created before they even brought me in as the writer or Pere as the artist. And so I had to come up for a reason for why the suit existed. And so that was kind of fun of me coming up with, all right, what's the backstory on the suit? And it's like, you know what? I'm going deep with this. Yeah, I'm gonna tie this into everything. Karla's just gonna go nuts with it, and I was especially excited just because it gave me an opportunity to bring back Big Ronnie from Gwynpool, because I loved Christopher Hastings' run on Gwynpool, and Big Ronnie's House of Battle Spandex was always one of my favorite things, and the very first story I ever wrote for Marvel was a little 10-page short in the Gwynpool holiday special. And so I deliberately put in Big Ronnie and also the Punisher and Fin Fang Foom, because I didn't know if they were ever going to let me write another story for Marvel again. So why not go nuts?
Right. Exactly.
And so being able to bring her back, bring her into Spider-Woman's universe, I obviously had a lot of fun with that for both the explanation for the black and red suit and for the explanation of how she goes back to the new suit, which now, like, Pere and I worked a lot. He had a bunch of ideas for cool additions to it. And so that's what's cool is, like, we went back to the classic suit, but it's our version of it.
Right.
My main thing was I felt in many hands the bright yellow vagina arrow has not necessarily done just the most justice. So I really love how Pere basically came up with his version of the classic suit, and then kind of like also the functionality that we've created. It's like her web wings now like turn into kung fu fighting fans. It's so we've had fun making it our own, and I think it's been a nice balance, I think, of people who liked the classic suit, but we're also, it's like, oh no, there's surprises. We put in surprises.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with the character themselves, right? They have to keep evolving, otherwise, you kind of like, why am I still reading this if it's the same old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, that brings me to, you mentioned Gwenpool, and that reminds me of the other aspect that you always bring. There's always humor, even if it's dark humor, which kind of, ties in with your comedy writing background. So, we always appreciate that, getting the laughs as well.
Well, it's I made a joke with Chip Zdarsky one time. I was like, people don't understand. We only put in the jokes. Like, people think of us as the funny people, but we only put in the jokes because it makes the emotional nut punches hurt worse.
Right.
It's it's like joke, joke, joke. Oh, it's like joke. It's like, yeah, I just, it's confusion. I enjoy doing that. Like, that's where, the Karla cackle has now become known among a lot of the readers of the book, because they always know when I'm doing something evil that somewhere out in, whether it's on a boat in Washington or in the wild desert of Arizona, Karla is just going.
I gotcha again, which you did, which you totally got us in the latest issue, and we'll talk about that. And that's part of the reason, everybody, that I'm releasing this when I am, which is on the Wednesday after the latest issue came out, where we got a big reveal for a new villain. So you've had a week to read it, and we're going to spoil it, and we're going to talk about it in a second. A couple other things to get to first. We mentioned kind of the hiccup you had, and you and I were talking about the insanity of our current world with the pandemic before we started recording.
Yeah.
So yeah, you knew you guys were getting 5 issues. Obviously you probably hoped for more. It seemed like you had love for Jessica right from the start, but you got 1 issue and then.
Well, we got 1 issue. Our first issue comes out in March 2020. It's the best-selling comic of the month. We kicked Batman's ass, and then everything comes to a screeching halt. We actually were incredibly lucky, though. For everything that happened, a lot of books got canceled. So obviously distribution came to a halt, in April. A lot of books were canceled. A lot of books were delayed or reorganized. Things that had been planned got either, kind of juggled around. Peta and I, we never had pencils down.
Oh, wow.
So Spider-Woman, we were still working on it through the lockdown. Like, even as like, sometimes it's like, oh, well, there's, furloughs, there's, staffing changes. Like, a lot of crazy stuff was going on for the editors too, because, they're all of a sudden in lockdown in New York. Like, it was a lot of really crazy, really scary stuff for everyone, not just for stupid comic book writers, but we never went pencils down. We kept working on the book. And that was humbling, just the fact that they had enough faith in us to like let us keep working and to keep pushing us forward on the series, even as a lot of stuff was getting moved around. So that was that. Yeah, we definitely, and I think I mentioned it in my letters page for issue number 2, is, it's like I'd written like this goofy little letters page for issue 2, and like right after 1 came out, and I had to rewrite the entire thing.
Yeah, I
it was like,
so.
Yeah, we didn't know issue 2 wasn't going to be coming out until June.
Right.
So yeah, it was wild stuff, but we got through it. Some of us with COVID, some without, and now it's, we're going on like over 2 years now that I've been working on Spider-Woman, and this was my first ongoing series.
Right.
That's insane to me. Like, that's bonkers.
It's quite an accomplishment. And I imagine that, with so much uncertainty early on in the pandemic, we didn't know. We were talking about it before about how even early on the symptoms, everything was changing from day to day.
Yeah,
I work in the restaurant industry. Was it a good distraction to that you got to keep working on this?
I don't know that distraction would be the best word for it. It was we got through it. So we all got through it. So that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important bit, I guess. But yeah, it was scary stuff. It was scary stuff for everyone. And, it's hard not to feel inconsequential in the face of so many other friends either losing jobs or businesses or, or gigs. And so I guess humbling, you feel grateful that you got to keep going. And so you felt, hey, I just got to do the best job I can and hope that it makes up for all the, hope that it makes a few things at least a little easier for some people. Hey, at least we've got dinosaur punching coming. Will that make it better?
Yeah. Well, and I'm a big believer that, you can tell a lot about a society with the fictions that they tell, the stories that they create, what's important to them. And, obviously you had no idea what was coming when you formulated those first initial 5 issues that you knew for sure that you were going to get. And you brought in so much of, going back to the early roots of Jessica and things tying in with her family, meet her brother, we meet her niece, her mom's still around. And it also sort of ties in with what you were saying. You made us care about these characters, and then you nut punch us. like you were
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, that's what I
So
do.
it worked out.
That's what Karla does.
Yeah, it really worked out. So now, as you're looking back, as we said, issue 18 that came out this last Wednesday, as you're looking back, do you realize how successful that was? Like, have you heard feedback? I mean, with
I mean,
2020, hindsight.
I think probably the funniest was because when I wrote issue one, Peta and I hadn't met, internet met yet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who I'd be writing the issue for. And, so I basically end up like flopping a script on his desk that's like, oh, hey, so it's a big Sweet 16 party on a yacht, and also everyone in the background is dressed as every hero from the Marvel Universe. Anyway, also I'm going to pull a helicopter out of the sky. All right, cool. Whoever gets that, have fun with that. Um, but obviously he just ran with it.
Yeah, I did.
And, it was such an amazing, like, what a way to, like, I'm not tooting my own horn here. It's what an amazing way to start a new series. That was fun. It's like, we didn't know if we'd keep going or not, but it was funny because he was like, if I'd known that Michael Marchand and Rebecca were going to be like more important like through the rest of the series, he goes, I would have like spent a little more time on their design. But he didn't need to because it was perfect. And yeah, it's like I loved that I got to create so many characters for those first 5 issues, like Octavia Vermis and which I tied back into Bendis's origins.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned this before. I used Bendis's origins as like a springboard,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just went nuts with it. But I also, it's like, my feeling is always, I never want to eliminate anyone else's canon.
Mm-hmm.
Like the writers and creators that have gone before me, I don't want to toss that out. But I want to build on it, and maybe I'll take it a direction, Roger, that some people aren't as pleased with, or send the baby off to a farm for 5 issues. But I always want to build on what other people have created and pay tribute to that, and then also see where I can take it to,
Right.
Because all any one of us can do is give the characters our own voice and hopefully create other compelling characters that someone down the line hopefully will have a heyday playing with Octavia Vermis or Michael Marchand, Aeternum now, and or Rebecca Marchand. Like I have a lot of care and love for Rebecca because I based her physical disabilities and her physical challenges on a lot of stuff that I grew up with as a kid. Like I've got a degenerative joint disease, and so a lot of what she kind of went through emotionally is stuff that I went through emotionally, and so I thought it was cool to be able to bring that into the comic and tie it in, and then make some terrible jokes, and then more gut punches. So, or as I call it, heart rippies.
So if there's a lot of you and Rebecca, is there a lot of you in Just the Mess?
Oh
well?
gosh, I mean, I have made no. I haven't been shy about being very clear that yes, I'm basically writing Jess as me. Yeah, just hot mess, uses humor as a coping mechanism, terrible puns, bad jokes, but also like as Jess, I get a kick ass, and
Yeah.
Peta brings so much of that. I mean, I think that's what's cool. I think about what we've done with Jess is like Peta is exploring like her training that she had with Taskmaster and from Hydra. She is a martial arts, expert. And you don't get to, I don't think anyone before Pere has really explored it the way that Pere has done it. And that shows on the pages, the layouts that he does. It's like,
I was going to say, it goes back to what I was saying before about the fact that, you guys, you've never once treated her like she wasn't top tier, Marvel character, but again, bringing the humor and the heart and balancing all that, it nearly is a perfect comic in my mind, and that's why we sing its praises every month. But going back to, like you were just saying, those punches, I mean, it was so amazing those first few issues. Oh, she has a family again, her mom's around, a brother, and then I even said this, when the Eternum stuff happened, I'm like, man, I was so excited. That scene on the airplane where she jumps on the wing and she looks in and sees that it's Michael. I'm like, man, here I was so excited for her to discover she had a family. Careful what you wish for, Jess.
Yeah, it's like, no, I found a family. Crap.
I have a family.
Yeah, it's like, oh, right. Well, no, this is just going to keep happening. But I mean, I think it highlights her found family too. That True. Was what was fun of bringing, exploring the relationship with her and Captain Marvel, the Jess Carol relationship. Obviously, it's been extremely important to the fans. I didn't realize how important when I started writing the series, but I got informed real quick. But that's been fun because I do love, I love their relationship. I think that's just such a fun, heartfelt, real relationship. And so then getting to bring Lindsay McCabe back, of Jessica Drew's very first friend, before she ever met Carol, and Lindsay McCabe was the first friend that really accepted Jess for who she was, before she even knew who she was. And that's been fun, getting to bring her back and have fun with Lindsay, and obviously had a lot of fun creating that family bond between Rebecca and Jess, because obviously Jess sees a lot of herself in Rebecca.
Right.
And even though, Michael turned out to be an idiot, but I was always kind of writing. I described him before as he's just a big, dumb golden retriever.
Yeah.
He's very, he's obviously smart. He's brilliant. He's a Drew.
Book smart.
But he's also just incredibly dumb. And that's fun to write. But no, it's I've had so much fun creating these characters, and then making people get really mad at what I do to the characters.
That's
poor Ophelia Vermis.
Yeah, that's a secret to a great comic. Make us care and then pull the rug out from under us. Now we've been talking about this Carol Jessica relationship, and I mentioned what a fabulous job Kelly Thompson's doing on Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah.
And we see Jess show up in the Captain Marvel book. We see Carol show up in the Spider-Woman book. Do you and Kelly touch base from time to time just to mention these appearances across?
We mostly just complain. We'll be in each other's DMs occasionally, but for the most part, timeline wise, what the Spider-Woman timeline and the Captain Marvel timeline, at some point, I was really fretting about it, and I think Nick Lowe was just like, don't worry about it, doesn't matter. It's I can run with that. Yeah. So I kind of have a general timeline. I have a point in my head where I kind of know where my stuff is happening. Kelly knows where her stuff is happening. It might not match up exactly perfectly, but it's comics. Just read the comics. It'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Read them both and enjoy them.
Read them both, enjoy them. Don't worry about it. A wizard did it.
Exactly. Exactly. Now we did mention, and I know you're friends with Chip Zdarsky and the whole story of him writing you a recommendation letter, and we're not going to talk about it here. You've talked about it 1,000 times. Go look it up, everybody. Just Google like Chip Zdarsky, Karla Pacheco recommendation letter, and you'll get the whole story.
Who knows what you'll get with that Google?
That's true. That's true. But issue 18 does tie into the Devil's Reign event that has its roots in what Chip's doing.
We did act. So Chip and I were actually coordinating pretty hard on that. At some points, much to our editor's chagrin. And no, I love Chip. I love what he's doing with Daredevil. For me, any of the tie-ins with both King in Black and with Devil's Reign, for me, the key to me for a good tie-in is if you don't read any of the tie-ins, you should still be able to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to make sure that if you're only reading Spider-Woman, this just feels like a natural continuation of the story that we're telling. And I take advantage of that as impetus and motivation for an inspiration for what I'm doing with the current Spider-Woman story. I'm sorry, I'm looking very shiny right now because the sun finally came out, and I'm doing this on my patio because I'm a genius. But no, so I try to take inspiration from like what Chip is doing with Devil's Reign, because obviously Jess and Kingpin had a little history like during Hopeless's Doctor Strange run, and so there's been moments where they've interacted, and so we definitely had to do a fair amount of coordination for all of this, figuring out, okay, whose stuff is coming here, whose stuff is tying in there. So this one we did have more coordination, more scheming, and more editorial getting yelled at when we're like, yeah, so Chip and I were talking, we're going to do this. They're like, no. It's like, okay, so Chip and I were talking, and no, stop it. It's like, okay, so I'm just going to do it anyway then. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, well, Chip didn't want to do that. It's like, we don't care. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do this. We don't care. Guy, and I was like, all right, no, we figured it out. Meanwhile, Chip and I are just like texting furiously back and forth. But I'm very proud with what we came up with, because it feels like it adds to what he's doing with Daredevil and Devil's Reign, adds to my story, and it gives a really cool angle to what's going on in Jess's world right now. And I always love being part of the Marvel universe. Like that's what's fun. That's what I love about writing comics, is I like being part of this big sandbox that we're all playing in together. Like it's fun to share our toys.
Yeah, and we get somebody who shows up from a past event we'll talk about here in a second. The thing that surprised me the most when I saw last issue, Lindsay McCabe gets kidnapped, and it's going to tie into Devil's Reign. I was like, Daredevil's such a street level, classic Marvel street level character. And what you and Pere have been doing is really kind of reminding us, because in a lot, especially with her private investigator roots and whatnot, bounty hunter roots, Jess has traditionally been, a little bit more on that street level. But in your run, what you guys have really shown is her power level, especially the King in Black stuff out in space, what have you. Her power level is really much higher than Daredevil. When you if you're stacking them up.
Oh yeah, it's apples. Well, and especially after she got all like Marchand serum zooped up, and yeah, it's I've always thought. This is one of the things that I always thought was coolest about Spider-Woman, is she actually is kind of the fine line between like Avenger superhero and the street level superhero.
Like a foot in both worlds almost.
Yeah, she does. She always has. And I think that's one of the things that does make her very unique, is she's always like, she can fit in with, Luke and Danny, and other Jessica. But she also is an Avenger, you know, and Shield. And so she's always managed kind of that balance of both. And I think that's always a fun thing to kind of explore and take advantage of. But obviously with, you know, Devil's Reign, there's, you see like, you know, the tie-ins of all of this kind of coming to a head.
Yeah, and we know Jessica's been through trauma, you know, with what happened in her childhood, how she got her powers in the first place, and then obviously being replaced in Secret Empire, which here we go, Kingpin, very much
Invasion,
Secret Invasion, right? Secret Invasion, that's right. When all the Skrulls, everybody replaced, if you're not familiar, the Skrulls had replaced people for some for years. And we didn't realize that they had infiltrated. That's the whole Secret Invasion, which is going to be a cartoon or a TV show or something being developed for Disney Plus. But anyway, here we go. Kingpin, very much at the heart, kind of the driving force, the engine of this Devil's Reign crossover. Somehow had Varanki, who was the queen of the Skrulls, who replaced Jessica. Again, that trauma that she's never dealt with.
Yeah. She
shows up, and I got to tell you, Carly, it was a holy shit moment when I read that. And I think I sent you a DM or I put it out on Twitter or something. I was like, oh my God, you did what? How much fun was that? That was, I heard you cackling when I was reading.
That's where the Karla cackle gets very loud. Well, especially because when the very first issue of our Spider-Woman run came out, we kept making jokes. It was like, not a Skrull, not a Skrull. It's like, she's not feeling good, not a Skrull. And obviously she isn't a Skrull because, hey, Varanki's here. But no, it's that was fun. And it will continue to get fun, where Jess finally gets to come face to face with, you know, the person who impersonated her and hurt her friends while she was being impersonated. Like, so there's definitely some issues about to show up in the next issue for sure. But no, it was fun because we were, that was actually one of the conversations early on with Chip. Like, we're talking about who would want to hurt Jess the most, like, and how would they do it? And that was like, wow, it's like, you hurt Lindsay, you hurt her best friend. And we definitely had conversations about, like, we didn't want to fridge Lindsay.
Right.
And she's okay. Don't tell anyone. She's okay. But, you know, it's like, no, it's like, who would want to hurt Jess the most? And so we definitely get into that with a vengeance, and a vengeful vengeance, very shortly. And no, it was, it's fun, but also you also get to see my boyfriend, Stunt Dick, who was the stunt coordinator for issue 17. And you realize he was actually Varanki, the Skrull Queen. And he's like, oh, honey, you put me in a comic again. I was like, yeah, wait for next week.
Yeah, and again, fantastic art from Pere in this issue, especially. I think you put it out on Twitter, the where she's hitting Wilson Fisk as fast as she can in the back. Wait. Gorgeous panel, love it.
It's obviously, like, the fight between Jess and Kingpin. Like, Kingpin's, like, he's a bruiser. Like, he's, you know, he's got his own, you know, capabilities. And Jess has hers, but it's also been a very long day. And so the fact that, you know, them going toe to toe, like, that was a lot of fun. And so Pere drew in every single one of those little whams in that one panel where Jess is just, you know, punching the hell out of Wilson Fisk. And when I saw all those whams, I was just like, yes, I know what I got to do. Pere's like, thank you. I was like, yeah, I got it. And so, yeah, so there's this brutal fight scene going on, and Jess is very subtly quoting Wham lyrics. Like, she's just quoting Careless Whisper. And
so hilarious. It especially resonated with me because my mom is just the worst with song titles, and she never. And I remember when that song hit it big way back in the day, and she was asking me because I was always good with song titles. She's like, you know that song? Like, I want to use it because my mom teaches fitness classes, and still to this day she does. And so she wanted to use that song as like a cool down period in one of her classes, but she needed the name, so she'd go out and buy the 45. Yes, I'm that old. I'm 45 records. And she's like, you know that song where they talk about lonely feet? Because it's that sign, lonely feet have gotten a rhythm. And so then from then on, Careless Whisper was always referred to as lonely feet in our house. So yeah, I know the lyrics very well.
So I'm sure when you caught that line,
yep, took me back.
Little knees have no cartilage. So Pere was happy with that one. Pere and I work Marvel style a lot. Basically, every time before I start an issue, he and I will have a conversation where I'm like, what do you want to do? And it's not like, oh, what story do you want to tell per se? It's what fight scene were you trying to get in? Because he always has these brilliant ideas for different fight. Like, or he'll text me just like, okay, I really want to do a Tai Chi scene. I've got an idea for like just doing like Wing Chun butterfly knives. That's why Jess has the steak knives in issue 13, or not issue 13, issue 12. The reason Jess ran into the restaurant to get steak knives was because I knew Pere wanted to do a fight scene against Los Espadas with her having knives.
Right.
So and he was like, had this idea to do like a fight scene with these type of knives. And we talked about what the knives look like. And I was like, okay, all right, I can have her do this, 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 and this, so I can get the knives into her hands so that you can then take them and then they can do this. And we're like sending each other pictures of steak knives back and forth. I was like, okay, this one's got a tang that should be enough to catch the blade if it's, because, you know, I date a stuntman and we have a sword room and I like weaponry and kung fu and violence as well. So that's where we're always working out. Like, I figure out what type of things he wants to draw. I figure out a way to make it make sense in the plot. He draws it up. I go back through and put in the jokes. I remember, what was it? The scene where Jess is, when Aeternum is revealed, when Jess is breaking into Marchand Tower again, and she's releasing the pheromones, like, and I've got that all written in. That's like, oh, she releases her pheromones. That's a callback to issue 2, when she's like trying to take out the guards, and it doesn't work for these guards because they're straight ladies, and Jess's pheromones don't work on straight ladies. And he was like, so I was like, okay, so they kind of make a face like this doesn't work on him. He's like, I can't wait to see what sort of fart joke you put in. And I was like, now I got to come up with a fart joke. So I did, and he was pleased. I was just like, Sam, did you eat cheese again? You know you're lactose intolerant. And he was like, yay. And it was the same thing with that Wham. He writes in all those Whams. I was like, so Wham joke? He's like, yes, please. It's like, gotcha.
Well, it goes to a question I have for you about, why comics? Because really, there's nothing as collaborative as comics. And unfortunately, we're still having the conversation where, it's
artist is it artist versus writer week again?
Yes, every once a month, every 2 months, whatever it is, because some article will come out and say, "Oh, Watchmen by Alan Moore." Yeah. Nobody mentions Dave Gibbons. It's a constant frustration, and you even see it on comic book news websites who should know better.
Yeah.
But I know you've gone out of your way to give Pere so much credit. This is so collaborative. He is the storyteller of this as much as you are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In so in 13 and in one coming up, it's like we go 100% Marvel style. Like I write out the outline and it'll be like a page by page outline, but I also give him a lot of freedom of, okay, here's what we could do here. Here's what you do. And because he's going to come up with a better fight scene than I could imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And then my trick is to make sure it all makes sense, and then it's smart-assed and terrible and heart-ripping. I give him all the emotional beats. I set out where we need, like, here's where we are, here's where we need to get to. No, it's a 100% collaboration. I do it, like, I try to make sure that the whole team gets credit for what they're doing. Like, obviously, Frankie and Travis are just as important. Lindsay and Nick, and for them, Jake Thomas and Kathleen Wisniewski. Like, our editorial team is great. But that's why I love writing comics. Mm-hmm. Is I like the collaborative nature. I like brainstorming this stuff out. Like, to me, writing comics has always been about the problem solving. And that's why I know a lot of writers and creators hate crossovers, but that's the reason why I like them. Mm-hmm. Is because I get to come up with a way to make it work for our story. And that's the stuff that I get excited about writing comics, is because it's not done in a vacuum. Like, if you only want to tell your own story, write prose. Right. Or learn how to draw. And obviously there's tons of, like, Pere is a great writer on his own individual work in his own right. But we bring out the best in each other, I think. And I feel like I know for 100% he's made me stretch my writing, and I think I've somewhat given him an opportunity to stretch, like, just to go nuts with the artwork, because I'm just like, what do you want? I mean, anytime I start working with an artist that I haven't worked with before, I send them a questionnaire. Mm. What do you like drawing? What do you want to draw? What's something you've never gotten a chance to draw but really want to? What stuff you hate? What do you absolutely not want to draw? Is there, like, what can I do to give you something you're excited about drawing? Like, that's my job, is to make them happy.
Well, like, if they're having fun, if you're having fun writing it, they're having fun drawing it, it shows in the work, right? If you have a passion for it, a love for it, it comes through in the work, and then the work's better for it. It's really like trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. It's like, we're not going to hit it every time, but I do feel like the entire Team Crazy Goat has just, I feel like every single issue we've just gotten better and better, like, all of us. Like, I feel like, I mean, we started out strong. Like, I loved Pere's art from the beginning. Mm-hmm. What he and Frankie and Travis are doing now, I feel like, holy shit, like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. I am so happy to be a part of it. Like, I feel like we're all really lucky. And Pere and I will both get, like, all misty-eyed at each other at times. It's just like, I love you, you're so good. He's like, no, I love you. Like, just it's great having that collaboration. Like, that's what comics is supposed to be.
Exactly.
It's I mean, it's lightning in a bottle, but it can't be done in a vacuum. Like, that's what comics is. It's working with someone else, so you all just get to create something amazing. Like, how could that not be fun?
Yeah, and it goes to something else I talk about a lot, which is the power of the medium. You guys couldn't do the story in this way in any other medium. It works best in comics. Now, not to put you on the spot here, but like no end in sight? You keep going, like you've got tons more stories for Jessica?
We will always have lots of stuff. We're gonna keep Spider-Womaning as long as they let us keep Spider-Womaning. And I basically said that from issue 1. I'm really, really happy with what we've been doing with it, and I think people are going to be very excited for, like, the next couple issues are they're exciting. Like, yeah, if you thought the big reveal with Veranke was fun, I think everyone's going to really, really love what we've got coming up. And obviously, because the solicits are out, coming soon, the Anti-Arachnine,
Wow.
which is it's something. It's something I came up with because I came up with the name Anti-Arachnine, and it made me laugh. And so then I wrote 2 issues about it, and it is something.
Can't wait to find out what that's about.
It in a series that has been only described as bonkers. I can say it is the most bonkers thing that we have done so far.
Oh, now, yeah, you definitely have my curiosity beat. Now, I know I wasn't the only one that went crazy when Veranke showed up. How was the reaction, like, on social media and whatnot?
There were a lot of and holy shit, you mad woman. So yeah, so that was fun. It's always nice to get my my little to justify the Karla cackle. So that was a delight. Everyone just going,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
we said it. So it turns out that, when Norman Osborn shot Veranke in the head, turns out Wilson Fisk was just quick to pull up quick and retrieve it. So she'd just been chilling out in Ravencroft for a while.
Yeah, I mean, skulls are hard to kill. I mean, you shoot them in the head, they just change the bullet right out.
Yeah, just shape it out. But yeah, so she's just been chilling, definitely not going insane, locked up in a room for a really long time. and now has just been let loose upon Jessica Drew.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Karla. As we're winding down here, I know you have some other projects coming down the pipe. You want to mention what else you have going on?
Gosh, something hasn't been announced, but that'll be cool. Other thing I think is still coming. That's not out yet. There's other books.
Yeah, like with Dynamite, right? And then
not currently, no.
No.
No, I did the Betty Page 5-parter for Dynamite a while back, and then but currently we do have the Deadpool Black, White, and Blood. I think they made like a nice fancy edition of it. So I do have a story in that, which is about as Karla as you get, because yes, helicopter explosions. And I had a lot of fun with that. Just recently finished up the Carnage Venom Infinite comic for Marvel Unlimited. And I think I can say there's something coming in the future for Marvel Unlimited that I'm involved with that is not something I've written before, and I think people will quite enjoy it, because I'm enjoying it. These were characters where when I was asked about writing them, I was like, why'd they want me to do that? And then I realized, like, oh, because they're all assholes. It's like, gotcha. So that is, that's, again, I'm being as vague as I can be, but it's a lot of fun. And keep paying attention to the Karla Pacheco on Twitter, because that is where I announce whenever I have something coming up. But mostly I just torture people with puns that are even more excruciating than all the heart rippies I put Jessica Drew through.
I'll put a link to Karla's Twitter in the show notes, everybody, if you're having trouble finding it. For the Marvel Unlimited stuff, it's a different format, digital first. Is it different writing for digital first as opposed to writing for the print?
Well, so the Infinite comics are, so instead of writing for the page turn, you're writing for scrolling down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like I've always been page turn obsessive. Like you were talking about, the medium is unique.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I love about comics, is writing specifically for the medium, because you know how people are going to be looking at the book. I always want to have that little moment that makes you want to turn the page. You know, it's like, oh, what just happened? Oh, what's going on? That's one of the things that I think is just so special about comics, and why it's not just, you know, a book with pictures or a movie that hasn't been filmed yet. It's comics. That's what you write for. And so for the infinite comics, it is infinite canvas. You're scrolling down because it's optimized for reading it on your phone or your tablet. And so those with the Carnage Venom books, I was specifically trying to take advantage of that. So as you scroll down, and especially with Carnage and Venom, it was fun because I was just like, okay, you're scrolling down so you see what's happening, but you also can scroll back up and see, like, oh, like the symbiote is shooting back up this way and being pulled down. And so I definitely tried to pay attention to all the possibilities of the format for that, because I think it's I think it's important just to write for the format, and B, like, that's the fun part, is taking advantage of all the possibilities.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it gives you a chance to work with other artists. I mean, I know obviously you and Pere have a fantastic relationship, but as a writer, you know, it's often you have the opportunity to maybe write more than one book a month, and you know, art just takes longer. That's just a
no, well, except for Pere being such a beast, I'm usually trying to catch up. Like,
oh wow,
I'm desperately tight, like slow. Like I have literally said, draw slower. He's like write faster. It's like, I can't. This is as best as my brain does.
hey, Pere, these jokes don't write themselves, man.
I know. It's like, dude, it's like, just draw a fight. I'll figure it out later. I'll make up some science to explain it. That's my big thing. I just make up science.
The very, very classically Marvel comics of you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, again, Karla, it was so great chatting with you.
Thanks for having me on. You guys have always been like so enthusiastic about the book, and I definitely really appreciate how how enthusiastic you've been about the book from the beginning. And just, I think every issue you've definitely talked about like enjoying it, and that's definitely been fun and important for us. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and I mean, honestly, the book is it's such a joy. It's like, okay, if you love comics, you will love this book. You just want to get as many people reading it as possible. So, any last thing that you want to let our listeners know as we're finishing up here?
Keep reading it, preferably buying it. But it is also all the Spider-Woman, like, gosh, not sure how far we're up to. Like, if you haven't been reading Spider-Woman, it's also available on Marvel Unlimited. So that's just monthly subscription. You can get some pretty deep cuts and get all caught up on Spider-Woman if you haven't been reading it already.
Yeah, fantastic advice. So to you listeners, we really appreciate your support and for joining us as always. Don't forget, there's a link to Karla's Twitter handle in the show notes. So go make sure you give her a follow so you know when new projects are coming up, and you can yell at her for her gut punches.
Yell at me for the gut punches, the puns, the heart rippies, and the terrible, terrible jokes.
Yep, fantastic. So again, everybody, thanks for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.